Hey everybody, Theta here, back with another stone-faced reaction. Of course, by myself, because this is how I do these now. We're back with another Gundam 00F, Chapter 3, Azadistan. Just some clarifying bits before we get into this. So, on Discord, I kinda got spoiled to the fact that Von Spark is an actual, literal bad guy. Unfortunately, information is a thing that once absorbed is hard to get rid of or forget on purpose. Uh, you know, Trying to forget a thing also includes remembering it in the first place. That in this series is so heavily focused on Font Spark that any questions I had about him are going to automatically make me think of that. So, going forwards, just know that I know that's a thing that I know. Also, I realized I started ranking these chapters in the first episode and then immediately forgot in the second one. So, doing a quick reach back here, I want to say that I'd give chapter 2 a 6 out of 10. The barren art really pulled things back for me, and the one notable encounter being drawn blurred on purpose as well did not help. I was thinking 5 out of 10, but I bumped it up a point for the enjoyment I pulled from the interactions between Echo and Fawn, as well as Fawn showing up lock-on, which I think is always going to be a +1 to the score from me whenever an Angel member shows up a Celestial Being member. I think it's kind of obvious why, if you've ever watched any of our reaction videos, why I'd have that kind of view. All right, well, let's just hop into it then with the first page. Our first page opens up showing that plane thing I was confused at seeing in the last chapter as it flies over some base, assumedly in the region of the chapter name. We also get a zoom in on it, and it looks like some sort of jet or drone, really reminiscent of old G.I. Joe cartoons when they needed a dogfight to take place. We see what looks like two HRL soldiers in a panic, trying to confirm the situation, but the signal from the recon plane is weak, and to represent this, we are shown a sketch of what must be going on below. I'm of two minds on this. One, it is a really clever way in a drawn medium to depict a bad signal, but two, it's more of what I didn't like in the last chapter. The officer in charge shouts out his speculation that it might be a Gundam, as we then watch a mobile suit being destroyed. A Haru then appears, just going to assume Hanyo, sorry, chiming in about a call from Chal. Of course, now that I think about it, knowing what happens later, that might actually be a Gundam and not a jet. So, keep that in mind. The next page is a spread showing that Fawn is apparently mid-mission elsewhere in the world, clearly finishing a melee battle with at least three other mobile suits of some description. Chal calls him up on a display to inform him of a new mission plan from Veda, which seems to please him to no end. He lets her know that he's gracefully finished up, which just made me think of Buggy the Clown from One Piece and how he had claimed to flashily do stuff. Chal then requests to know the sitrep, and Fawn changes his wording to say that he's quietly finished his work. I think this was meant to be a joke, given the carnage that's played across the last two panels, and the still smoking wreckage of mobile suits beneath him. He clarifies that nobody saw the Gundam, then refers to a mask. I'm guessing this calls back to the space fight from Season 1, where bits flew off one of the Gundams and they were worried about it being recognized or something. You might recall it was the one with the Gundam with red hair. I don't know how else to describe that episode, and it's not really coming to me at the moment. Hanyo repeats back that it's a secret Gundam. Fawn agrees and then asks if he should destroy the command vehicle. Chal shouts at him, and Fawn seems to think this is super funny. I think in most cases, Fawn just thinks everything is super funny. Cue image below. I think I'm just dense because I don't really know what's being insinuated here. Does he mean their command ship? Like, now he has the cuffs off, is he joking about killing them and making a break for it? If so, great for them, letting him constantly run more missions then? Like, if the dude is threatening to kill them, and you're still like, this guy, still better than Echo. We do a short 4-panel zoom in on what must be their new temporary base, dug into a forested mountainside behind giant metal doors. It seems like a small hangar with an office-style meeting room in it. Whichever of the four Gundams Fawn was out in, the small unnamed girl seems to be overseeing its parking in the hangar, as Chal, Echo, and Fawn gather in the office. Chal tells them both that Mossad Rashmati, the religious leader of the Middle Eastern kingdom of Azadistan, has been kidnapped, as we had seen in season 1 of the show. Next page, our first panel gives a bit of a recap to the events leading up to the kidnapping, showing our main UN backstabber and Setsuna's favorite princess, as Shaw informs them that the country had begun construction of a solar power facility with UN assistance. Again, events from season 1. This being done at the behest of the Reformist Party, represented by Princess Maria Ismail, and that the Conservative Party that opposes entry of foreigners into the country might take extreme measures to prevent it. Echo, always thinking out loud, muses on the fact that the conservatives that oppose solar power kidnapped the religious leader of the Conservative Party and stumps himself trying to figure it out. Fawn once again calls out his stupidity, pointing out that someone wants to start a civil war and that this is an act designed to pit the factions against one another. Chal agrees with this assessment and says that Veda is predicting an intervention from a third party. A couple of odd things jumped out to me here. One, it seems odd that Veda considers Celestial Being to be a third party in its predictions and not one of its own primary actors. Second, I have to wonder if whatever missions Chal gets have the writer of whoever wins in the debate in the debriefing gets to pilot the Gundam for the mission. Alright, just a quick clarification here. One, I'm now realizing a mistake that I've made in my recollections of the events. Obviously, now I know Veda is not considered the third party in the predictions. I've taken some notes here, and my notes were taken on a per page reading. So, problem that I have further on, and I describe further on, is occurring here, where I'm describing confusion at Celestial being a third party in its own predictions, when in fact there is any actual third party in place here, and I didn't know this at the time of describing this page. So, keep that in mind if I make that mistake again later on. The next page gives us a brief history of the region in a mission briefing between our three characters. Echo questions if Celestial Being is going to intervene, and Shaw explains that that Azadistan abandoned its previous government in favor of the old royal bloodline, then forcefully annexed the neighboring Kurdish republic. Despite attempts to stabilize the region, it is still in turmoil. Echo further questions the reasoning behind solar power, as the country's oil reserves should be enough energy production. He then goes on about collecting carbon dioxide underground as though it is a benefit of some sort, and not just pollution prevention. I mean, the way he talks about it sounds like he's saying it's a good thing, and not just, hey, this is something they have to do. It's confusing. The one thing that really stood out to me on this page is the fact that Shaw seems to try and excuse the Azadistan's use of force over the Kurdish Republic when he's describing it, as an attempt to stabilize the region. It's still a use of military force over another group, which Celestial Being should be opposed to anyways. And yet, as far as we are in the show, Azadistan keeps getting helped by Setsuna, which is further confusing, and a note that I've written down later. And we'll get to that, but it's weird. It seems like it's opposed to what they're about, but at the same time, the person most harmed by it in the past is the one that helps them constantly. It's just very confusing. As always, Echo has a question, and if the answer makes him look stupid, Fawn is the one to answer it. Fawn explains that using oil requires paying a fee for not participating in the orbital elevator. In this two-panel spread, we also see the unnamed girl also appearing to be a sort of mechanic for the group, at the very least, using some controls to manipulate the stored Gundam. Shaw picks up on the explanation, stating that when Azadistan gains solar power, it will be the first country in the Middle East to do so, and that other countries would quickly follow. Shaw states that the third party won't allow that, and that it is them causing strife via the kidnapping and disguising um, by the kidnapping and then disguising that as a civil war. Echo, always full of energy for the obvious thing, chimes in that global stability without war is Celestial Beings' ideal, and they have to stop the fighting. As Chal goes over the fact that they will be performing an operation where many could see them, we pan back over to the little girl who is now in a rather large hangar with a jet of some sort. I think it makes it rather clear that she is the mechanic, making use of Waldo's and Hanyo in a robot suit of its own. Charles says that they will be using the Abhul to avoid revealing Angel's possession of Gundams in this operation. Abhul is Arabic for Sphinx, the mythological figure with the body of a lion and the head of a man. At least that's the Egyptian version. While the Greek version had wings and a woman's head and breasts. Famously, the riddle-telling one. Next page, the little girl calls Chal up to inform her that she's completed the installation of the solar furnace on the Abhul, giving us a closer look on Hanyo's robot suit. Chal tosses her a thumbs up from the meeting room, and I was hoping they would say the girl's name finally, but Hanyo interrupts to announce the arrival of agents. Since Hanyo and the girl are together alone in the hangar, they are the ones aware of the moment as the conversation continues in the meeting room. Echo laments the fact that they have 4 Gundams but only 1 solar furnace, to which Fawn makes a jab at him via the fact that they can only operate 1 Gundam at a time and he will never get to sortie. In Echo's always nervously energetic manner, he shoots back that no one said Fawn was going this time, which seems to be a continuing theme, that Echo always wants to go, and then Fawn wins, as per the previous agreement that apparently exists that whoever wins the debate during the debrief gets to go. The next scene starts with Echo dejectedly and confusingly looking on as Shaw orders Fawn to sortie, as it is Veda's decision. As the mission is apparently connected to his past somehow. As the two enter into a staring contest, the door to the room opens and the unseen voice notes that everyone is present. However, the girl and Hanyo from the hangar, Anyway, we see our two agents from the show make an appearance. Not super surprising, as they showed up to the thrones as well. Heck, we're even given. Sorry, my brain just. Heck, uh, were we in the reactions? We've seen them talk to ribbons as well. I meant to just imply that we've seen them talk to everybody. The agents seem to be on everyone's side that has anything to do with celestial being. They announced that in this mission, Angel will cooperate with the agents. Everyone else gives a reaction face. Chal seems pleased. Fawn seems the opposite. Echo's face is a hard read for me. He seems to be on the verge of a nervous breakdown as always, but my read is something more akin to infatuation, as he says the agent's name, Wang Lu Mei. Next page, we start with an overhead shot of a base in the middle of the desert. Next, we split up to see that Fawn apparently already on site in the Gundam, relaxing in the cockpit while Mai goes over the mission specs. Sorry, I don't remember exactly from recollection of the show if her last name is Mai or May, so just forgive me if I flounder back and forths on it. Uh, she goes on to say Union forces are being sent to Azadistan at the request of the reformist faction, but secretly they are there to capture a Gundam. As we see in the show many times, it's what they're all about. They're basically Team Rocket if the Gundam was Pikachu. Let's see. Next, this page is predominantly just May. You know what? May is now just making me think of the Yu-Gi-Oh character, so I'm just going to say Mai from now on, and I'm going to try and stick with that. Predominantly Mai discussing the plan to the backdrop of thousands of camera flashes. Again, don't know what's going on with some of these background scenes. Celestial Being is going to be deploying Exia and Dynamis, but Virtue and Kyrios won't be able to come as they have a mission at Lagrange 4. Thus, Angel is filling in for the roles those two would have played. May wraps up by saying that she expects a lot, especially from Fawn, who couldn't be less enthusiastic. Interesting note here, though. Lagrange 4 is the stable orbit point that leads Earth's orbit. I can't remember what is happening in the show at this point to say what's going on there, but that is where they are in the scheme of the solar system map, if you want to put that in your mental image. Alright, next we drop right in on the action. I imagine that the first panel is meant to denote speed, and the symbols are gunfire, as the next panel down are two mobile suits fighting one another. The aerial forces call out the attack at point D as they fly in, wondering if they are just after the antenna. Just a quick note that automatopoeia must be super hard to translate. Um, I've also said in the reactions that I'm horrible at picking out our main cast when they are wearing their helmets, so just keep that in mind. If I've somehow not stated that a character is in the scene, it's because of the whole helmet face problem. And I also brought up the automatopoeia thing because specifically it shows up in a lot of these panels that something is happening sound wise and it's not translated. And so therefore I have no idea what it is. That would be like a big problem if they're trying to get across, hey, this is the sound of an motor busting, or this is the sound of a gun going off. Different sounds imply different things going on in a scene, and thus could be problematic. The mission begins with Lock-On's Haro and Hanyo announcing to begin at the same moment. This, of course, means Fawn's handcuffs get released with all the manic energy that we are used to seeing from him. Instead of getting the panel of him roughing up his hair, as we normally do when his handcuffs get released, we see missiles being launched from the desert and the reaction of the Gundam pilot faces in response. Hanyo begins warning Fawn of an ambush, to which curses that being a guard isn't his job, let alone a job for a celestial being either. We then see Nanamis taking shots at the incoming missiles. Sorry, some of these notes I wrote while I was in a state of mind that was not well off. And I am noticing some mistakes in my writing which are hilariously drawing me out of the moment. So I apologize. I mean, just as an example, we then see Dynamis taking shits at the incoming missiles. It's funny. It's funny to see yourself writing horrible notes to yourself. He strikes a few, but the explosion makes it seem like they were actual MIRVs, multiple something reentry vehicles. As when they explode over the target, they end up raining down even more warheads onto it. In the dynamic that we started last chapter, Fawn chastises Lock-On in disappointment for playing hero. Monologuing to himself, Fawn brings up a display of the area with current targets, stating that their intervention doesn't mean they have to protect the facility. The display shows that two flags are heading towards the unknown missile launch point, while the custom flag is broken off to fight against the Dynamis. As Fawn states that he will head to the missile launch site as well, Hanyo inquires if he is going to abandon Lock-On. The attitude continues as Fawn says that if Lock-On can't win against a custom flag, then he wouldn't want to help him anyways. No doubt that this is the build-up from the two elements of last chapter, both Fawn showing how quickly he could break down the custom flag's abilities on sight alone and explain the correct tactics to fight against it, as well as his seeming contempt for Lock-On's abilities when he was sent to support him last time. Next up, we have a two-panel page of the Abul. It seems like it is already in the air in the first panel with a sheen of GN particles, but as the second panel seems to show a vertical takeoff, I can only assume that the sheen in the first panel was some sort of cloaking device being cleared away as it then takes off. Sometimes it is hard to read static images, is all I'll say. Alright, now we have the Abul speeding towards the target, with what seems this time to be GN particles trailing behind it. In the cockpit, Hanyo repeats, there it is, as if spotting the target, while Fawn states, Fawn stares at a Star Wars style targeting computer to confirm. He says that it is still too far to visually confirm, but showing off his impatience once more, states that if he does nothing, then the kill will go to the flags. We then see a pair of missiles fire from the Abul. If the sparkle is meant to indicate GN particles, then these missiles have them too, which I guess then also plays towards the fight at the end of Season 1, where the missiles strike the, God, I can't remember the name of it, the large mech that UN Dude has at the end. And I believe the comment was there that those were GN infused missiles. Next page starts with the missiles accelerating faster than the flags, passing them by. We then see their own targeting screens going all wonky as they shout in confusion about it. I'm pretty sure this confirms that the missiles were emitting GN particles. as they are the only things directly shown to do that so far in the series. Uh, by that I mean mess with sensors and whatnot. And the art depiction around them lines up with that as well. The flag pilots state that they can no longer track the target and question if the Gundam is doing it, peeling off back towards the direction of the Dynames as Fond zooms on ahead in laughter. We then get a comic star to indicate an object of interest off in the distance. As Fond says, "Gotcha!" Hanyo then also gives the super accurate measure of the distance to target as closing, closing, before deactivating GN veneers. Or sorry, veneers? I always have a hard time pronouncing the word. And switching to plasma jet engines. Verniers are tools for making a specific measurement, so assumedly it's just a name for the thrust vectors attached to the GN drive. Fawn then curses that he has to confirm the shooter while still hiding the fact that his jet is actually a Gundam in disguise. As Fawn closes in on his target also notices him back, stating that they've never seen that kind of machine before while watching them in a rear display. Now, this is just my shit memory at play here, as I did not recall Ali Al Sanchez being here, but as revealed, he is the one talking in the mobile suit Fawn is targeting. Currently, he is also asking who the machine belongs to, the Union or Celestial Being. He takes Celestial Being off the list due to the radar still working, which is a funny little aside to the fact that Celestial Being tries to stay hidden in an obvious way, while Angel, in this instance, is trying to hide in plain sight, which makes Ali think it's not them. Next page, Fawn quickly catches up with Ali, who compliments the sudden mid-air juke Fawn pulls in front of him. Would have looked cool animated, I'm sure, but not a lot to say for these action panels. In the midst of the juke Fawn pulls last panel, he transforms the Abhul as we see Gian particles emit from it again. Another moment of confusion for me, as it looks like it fires a beam in the first panel, but in the second panel, the beam isn't connected to the Gundam's line of sight anywhere. In the last panel, we see Ali apparently freaking out about this mid-air transformation with the swirling time travel effects from the movie The Final Countdown. Look it up. You'll understand immediately what I'm talking about. Also, it's a good movie. Might not hold up as well these days, but if you want to see if a American aircraft carrier from the 90s could win Pearl Harbor in the past, that's the movie you want to watch. In this next page, we have a two-page spread. We get a close-up of the Abhul and Ali's craft as they loom over one another in midair. As Ali appears to shout over what I can only assume to be open comms, as Fawn appears to hear him. "What the hell are you, a new Gundam?" I can only suspect that the GN particles from the Abhul must be masking long-distance communications. Otherwise, you'd assume other people might be picking up on someone shouting about a third Gundam on site. Next up, Fawn launches into a self-confident laugh as he announces that he knows the voice that just shouted, to Ali's confusion. Fawn calls him the indestructible Sachez as he buzzes Ali's craft, laughing into the distance, leaving Ali in confusion still. As Fawn flies off into the distance, Ali does not pursue, simply commenting on the laughter as though it's another person's voice from his past that sounds familiar. Focusing back on Fawn, Hanyo asks why Fawn is leaving the mission site. He responds that the mission's goal was to identify the third party, and that he knows who it is, identifying him as a mercenary and that leaving him alive is more interesting. I guess the note there is that Ali is apparently really good at remembering people's voices from, what are we looking here? 10, 15, 20, somewhere in that range, years ago? I'm already telling you that I have problems remembering things that happened on screen that were recorded less than a month ago. So that's why sometimes I'm incredulous. I give everybody the same memory ability that I myself have. And just like that, the mission is over. We are in a tent in the middle of the desert, and Fawn is locked back up once again. Mai is on a communications terminal talking to the entire team about their findings. She states that she thought Ali might have been a mercenary due to a report Lock-On gave, stating that Ali had some connection to an organization in possession of mobile suits. Fawn interjects to point out that Ali has fought in Azadistan in the past, as well inquires about Setsuna's country of origin, pointing out that Ali and Setsuna may know each other, and that he'll leave that one to him. Two major things stood out to me on this page. The first is the second panel. Hanyo has feet and a tail, like an actual cat. It's major. Don't let it not be major, it's major. The second thing, and remember that when it comes to the show, I have a memory like a sieve. Uh, so these manga panels and notes are helping me remember things as I go. Is that Setsuna is from from the Kyrgyz Republic, which we earlier established was forcibly annexed by Azadistan's Reformation government, which is led by the royal family, aka the princess that we see Setsuna hanging around with in the show from time to time. This puts that connection in an odd light for me now, as all the turmoil from his past feels like it should now be pushed on her shoulders, or at least the shoulders of her family. I recognize that the move trying to be made must be something of trying to be different and do better, but Setsuna always strikes me as an emotionless silhouette of PTSD over the past, so it's just a very standout connection to me. I believe this is the note that I referred to earlier in the review here. So if you've been waiting for it, this was the payoff. Mai gets a big old close up as she repeats Setsuna's name. We then see the inside of the tent for a moment, and I thought I was going insane as there is suddenly a new person standing there that I don't remember ever being there before. Echo is standing tersely off to the left. Chal is now sitting beside the nameless girl, and Fawn is leaning against a tent wall. But just to the right of the nameless girl is another girl wearing a dark outfit who has appeared out of nowhere. In the in his tenseness, Echo calls out the mission they are regarding as reckless. But Shawl notes that they have no choice to follow it, as it was a choice made by Sumeragi, Sumeragi being the plan maker of the main celestial being group. See, Echo leaps in to Chaw's side and announces that he's ready to sortie anytime, and for a moment Chaw seems to consider this, saying that they'll need somebody to stop him if things go bad. I had to cheat at this point and jump ahead a few pages just to understand what's going on. The first time the manga has really failed me in the narrative aspect, where I've been forced to do so in order to understand what's being talked about. In this case, the last page was actually a part of a fast forward to Setsuna's half of the mission. As you might recall, he wasn't there during the Dynamis fight stuff. Where he went off and rescued the religious leader that was mentioned to be captured earlier in this chapter. Without any context of this, it seems like they are just talking about something completely different. So, really threw me off. Fawn juts out his leg and trips Echo so that he lands face first into the ground, telling Shaw to just ignore him. The unnamed girl and a new unnamed character just look at the two as Shaw asks Fawn why. Fawn says it's interesting, going back to his observation about Setsuna trying to change the world, and that they shouldn't try and stop him. Fawn continues by saying that his feelings have nothing to do with celestial being or the world, he just won't let them stop him. To which Echo replies with the most ironic question of the series. He asks Fawn, he asks why Fawn always has to stick his nose in other people's affairs. As someone representing an organization whose directive is to stick their nose in the entire world's affairs, it lacks a certain sense of self-awareness, if you think about it. Fawn responds that he likes people that try to change the world with their own power, even if Setsuna's method is different, or that the world he desires is different. The penultimate panel is a spread depicting the moment after the religious leader has been returned to the capital, and Setsuna is about to return to Exia's cockpit. Notably, it shows the darkened mask that hides his identity, and I appreciate that the art is done just so that you can barely make out his face and eyes in the darkness if you look at it just right. And ironically, to my description of this, it gives an emotion to the emotionless mask, which is double layered thick if you think about all the times I've claimed that Setsuna is an emotionless mask himself. In the last panel, unnamed girl says the transmission has ended with new character standing beside her. We then see the GN particle trail going up into the sky, assumedly depicting Setsuna leaving the scene, as Echo expresses relief. We end off on Fawn laughing in hysterics over a relatively unhappy image of Shaw looking back at him. I apologize for all the stuttering and inappropriate pauses and everything. Throat still recovering, mind never recovered, and I feel like I've been biting my tongue this entire time. So I just want to say I'm giving you my thoughts, and I apologize for the poorness that which they may be received. Overall, though, another good chapter of 00F. I like how this was a support mission for something that actually mattered during the show. It established multiple character connections, namely that Fawn and Allie might be connected in some way, as well as Fawn might be connected to the region as well, which would then connect him to a lot of other shit that goes on. Then also going on to reestablish main character connections as well, such as Setsuna and the region, or Setsuna and Ali. We continue with Fawn's antagonism towards Lock-On, despite Lock-On seeming to have no idea Fawn exists at all, so far anyway. All in all, it was a good world building chapter. I was about to say episode. It was a good world building chapter, even if it only served to tell us things that more astute watchers of the show already knew. Not to forget this time, I'd give this chapter an 8 out of 10. The art wasn't amazing, but it was better than the previous chapters have been. The story was merged in with show elements and showing things from an angle that really didn't get shown in the show. Lock-On got shown up by Fawn, which automatically gives it a +1 for me. So, overall, best chapter yet. But yeah, this has been my read on Chapter 3 of the manga Gundam 00F. Thanks for joining me, and I guess I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another Stone-Faced Reactions. If you have an idea of another video we could go ahead and watch, go ahead and put it in the comments down below and we'll add it to the wheel. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what you thought about this video, what parts you liked. And until then, we'll see you next time. Is this too goofy?